Now, let me explain a little bit about how IPFS works. It's this distributed, decentralized data structure that's not exactly a blockchain, but it's similar to a blockchain. There's no mining though, but there is pinning data. You can add data to this. So let me explain how this actually works. And you can read how this works on the site. There's going to be a link to this in the GitHub repo associated with this course, but let me give you my basic take on it. So we have our code or our file or whatever it is, right? We have some piece of data. Now, as we know, when you really have anything, you can hash that thing. You can hash that data, right? And you can get a unique output. So, and that's actually the first thing that IPFS does. It hashes our data to get a unique hash that only points to that data. Yes, a massive code file, a ton of text. Yes, you can encode all of that into a single hash function. Your IPFS node does this hashing for you. And every single IPFS node on the planet has the exact same hashing function, kind of like a blockchain, right? They all kind of run this same spec, the same specification. So we can hash our data on our IPFS node and get this unique output. What we can do then is we can then pin that data or pin that code or pin that file or pin that whatever to our node. We have some data, we get a unique hash of it. All it does is host this data and have these hashes. That's it. Our node is connected to a network of other IPFS nodes. So there's a massive network of people running IPFS nodes. They're incredibly lightweight, way lighter weight than any other blockchain node, and they all talk to each other. So if I ask the network, hey, I want to get this hash, all these nodes would talk to each other, and eventually they'd reach up at our node saying, oh, I found a node that has that hash. Here is the file associated with it. Now you might be thinking, okay, well, that's kind of centralized because we have the data on one node here, right? Well, you're right. Well, here's the thing. What other nodes can do is they can say, oh, that data looks really cool. I want to have that persist. What they can do is they can pin your hash, they can pin your data, and they'll get a copy of your data on their node. And you can keep doing this. And so you easily allow an entire network to easily replicate any code or any data in a decentralized sense. And they're incredibly easy to spin up and they're incredibly easy to work with. Something about IPFS that makes it drastically different than a blockchain is they can't do smart contracts. There's no execution. It can really only store. It's just decentralized storage that IPFS can do. Now, the issue here is that in order for our data to really be decentralized, another node does need to pin our data, right? Because if we're the only IPFS node that's got this hashed, it's kind of centralized on our node. If our node goes down, that data is gone and the network won't be able to access that data anymore. So we'll talk about strategies in the future about having other people pin your data. But for now, this is a way we can host data, we can send code and have it be in a decentralized context. So unlike a blockchain where every single node in a blockchain is going to have a copy of the entire blockchain, IPFS nodes get to optionally choose which data they want to pin. And they can't do any execution. So you could have an IPFS node 0.5 megabyte, and you could have an IPFS node that's several terabytes. It's up to the node operators how much data and what data they want to pin. Now that we know about IPFS, let's actually deploy our wonderful application to IPFS so that anybody can use it and anybody can connect to it so long as our node is up. Are you ready? Okay, get excited here. We're first going to do this kind of the manual way because I'm going to show you how to install IPFS and work with IPFS. Hit get started. There's a number of ways to install and work with IPFS. You can get it with a desktop application, get a command line, and then we can also add IPFS to our browser. If you're using something like Brave or I think Firefox 2, this IPFS router is automatically built in. But if you're using something like Chrome, you might have to add a little companion because what we want to do is we can actually use those little hashes as URLs for websites, right? And so we want to be able to put that URL in our browser and connect to that node or that piece of code. So what we're going to do is we're going to have you install the IPFS desktop. So you're going to hit that. And when you do that, you should be able to open up IPFS. Now, if you install it, you might get this little guy, this little box here in your upper section. Otherwise, you might be able to open it up with IPFS desktop and see it as a regular desktop app. But once you install it, you might see IPFS is running. You can restart, stop, you can do all this stuff. We're going to go to the files section and we're going to get a little pop-up that looks like this. Now I've got a ton of stuff in here because I've been using IPFS for some time. In here right now, you might have no data. So let's just go ahead and import some file. And maybe for now, we'll just import, our next.config.js, right? It doesn't matter, just import something. And now in here, we have this next.config.js or whatever file you imported. So what we can do with this is we can actually copy the CID and we can view this in our browser. So if we do IPFS .. and we paste it in, we hit enter, we can give our browser access to actually rendering IPFS URLs. If you're using Brave, you can just use a Brave local IPFS node, or let's go ahead and download this IPFS companion. So we'll hit get IPFS companion. There's a Firefox install for Chrome, Brave, blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna go to the Chrome store to get it for Brave. We're just gonna hit add to Brave, add extension. But once you download it, you'll get something that looks like this. Even in our little browser companion, we can see like import, we can see stuff about our node. If we click our node, we'll see a very similar setup. But now that we have the companion in our browser, we can copy that CID, that hash. Now Brave, we can just do use Brave local IPFS node, and we'll automatically get dropped into the file. Now, if IPFS companion doesn't work for you and you can't see the URL inside of something like Google Chrome or some other browser, what you can do is you can use something called the IPFS gateway. Now, using a gateway, you're not actually directly requesting the data through IPFS. You're requesting the data through another server, which is requesting it through IPFS. But if you are having some trouble accessing these files, you can use the gateway. So what you'll do is you'll do https://ipfs.io/ipfs/ and then paste the hash code there, and you'll be able to see your file. Now, if you do it like this, you won't even need IPFS companion at all.